When I say we're going to change the face of modern day policing, that's not just a slogan. When I say that we're bridging the gap between law enforcement and community, that's not just a slogan. And I will not stop. I will not stop despite the adversity. I will not stop despite what people may say. I will not stop despite what people may think of me. I will not stop. It's not a slogan. It's actual action. Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Yes Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement and the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined today by the one and only light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, it's the Popo. What's up, my brother?
With the mustache, man. With the mustache. Don't forget the mustache.
I got to and we're also joined together today by his stash as well. He needs his own. We are joined today also by the Savage and his stash himself. I feel like y'all both got partners right now. You and your stashes. What up, Billy?
Had a bang this morning and feeling on top of the world.
I see your leg shaking over there, bro. He had a bang. His leg is already shaking over there. He like can't sit still in the seat, bro. Pretty soon, Billy about to be itching like a tweaker, bro. Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, brother, that is a perfect way that video froze, bro. That's stash, bro. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah.
Oh,
there
okay.
he is.
Oh, it came back. Oh, man, fellas. You know what we haven't done in a while, AJ and Billy? We have not done a passion episode, bro.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea.
And what I mean by a passion episode is a lot of things happen in our lives on a day-to-day basis. A lot of stuff, usually which me and AJ and Billy are usually kind of able to filter and kind of get through. I made my little post about Black Panther the other day, which kind of fueled by a little passion. Did you see that, AJ?
Mm-hmm. I did. That was fire, man.
Yeah, we recorded that right after we filmed our podcast episode.
Yeah,
that's when I told Billy. I was like, I got an idea. I was like, remind me that idea. So
got me ready to run through a wall,
bro. Yeah, so we're gonna make more of those. But anyways, the reason I bring that up is because there's things that happen in our lives that fuel our fire, that motivate us. But you gotta understand something. Even though me and AJ and Billy may seem to be resilient, which I believe we are resilient than most,
yeah, it
doesn't relieve us from the fact of we're still human beings and we're still affected by things. And so there's been a lot of things that have happened over the course of the last few days for me personally. I know there's some things that happened with AJ. And so we're just going to jump right into it today. I know we usually go over current events, but the current events are the things that are going on in our lives right now. And, you know, I've had some things that I kind of just want to get off my chest without getting into the specific details of it. But, I want you guys to realize, like, the walk that me, AJ, and Billy are taking. I keep saying Billy as well because Billy's in this road with us.
Yeah,
not only
for
from
sure.
the standpoint of you know, filming the content, putting out content, but you see what goes on, and also taking a faith walk in and of itself and making this one of his priorities in the way he survives. And so all of this stuff that we do comes with a cost, and it comes with people bantering, comes with people saying stuff. And so, you know, I want to know how you guys deal with that. I'll get into how I deal with it in a minute, but I want to know how you guys deal with it. And, you know, if this is actually occurring. Now, I'm going to ask a redundant question because I already know, or a rhetorical question. I mean, not a redundant, but a rhetorical question is, do you get people that, you know, try to say negative stuff to you, AJ, or, you know, people that try to criticize you or try to, you know, rob you from what it is that you're trying to accomplish, or even demean the work that you're trying to accomplish?
Man, bruh. First off, I just need everybody listening to this to know that, hey, this is going to be a deep episode. So y'all need to rock with this. Y'all need to listen to what we got to say. Y'all got to take this to heart, because we have been in the profession long enough to see what it is, how it affects us, how it affects our loved ones. And then on top of that, we've decided to take a very uncharted road towards change, which brings a lot. And, you know, like Ryan said, like, not only are we resilient, but we know that the end goal is worth it. So it makes a lot of like the pain and frustration and, whatever, bearable, but it still gets to us, right? And what better place to leave it than on the podcast? With that said, if you are thinking about joining this profession, know that this is still, in my eyes, the best job in the world, but it comes with a cost, and that cost is it will change you, right? When I was a brand new officer, I had a senior officer pull me aside, and he said, "Hey, you're always smiling, you're always cheerful. Never let this job wear you down." And I'm like, this job ain't gonna wear me down. Like I'm good. Like I done seen it all before this job, so ain't nothing this job gonna be able to show me. But what I didn't take into consideration are the outside factors, right? And I'll give you an example to back that is when I was involved in an incident that made the news. I had a loved one who was super close to me. I'm talking, we were like joined at the hip, call me in tears and say the words, "AJ, I thought you were one of the good ones." And it hurt so bad that in that moment, it was like a light switch for me. Like, whoa, hold on. Like, we grew up together. We grew up. There's pictures of us in diapers side by side, right? Like, that's what I'm talking about. And you're going to question my character based off of this small clip. So, of course, that turned into like this big argument that was not good. We're yelling at each other, cussing at each other, and the relationship has not been the same since. And that has not been the first time or the last time that has happened since I've been a police officer. And on the flip side of things, I have had conversations with my peers that have resulted in the same outcome, right? Like I've had peers come up to me and go, "AJ, why you do this?" Or "Stop doing this. You're making us look bad." Or they throw like secret shade, right? Like the TikTok cop memes, right? Like, "Oh, if you're on TikTok, you're soft," or if you dance in uniform, you're this, and kind of direct it my way. So just know that is something that Ryan and I deal with a lot, and we're not gonna make this a negative podcast because that's not us.
Bump that. I'm making it negative.
Well, this is what I mean. This is what I mean by that. Y'all are gonna hear us vent. There ain't no secret about that. We started it off. We jumped right into it, and we're in the deep end already. But the way that our brains work, and if you've been listening to this podcast long enough, like this is fuel to the fire.
Yep.
This is fuel to the fire. So, I had a conversation with someone who I consider a brother of mine yesterday, and I told him exactly that. Like, when I'm presented with a hurdle that I can't seem to get over or around or through, I get excited because I'm like, oh, this hurdle ain't gonna know what hit it when I figure out what I'm gonna do. And just know that we'll never stop what we're doing because we believe in the outcome. We believe in ourselves. We believe that by the time we're done doing this, it's gonna be done, and people are gonna look back and go, "Hey, they killed that. They killed that. Like they paved the way for us to do what we do without the headaches, like they took the brunt of it. They walked through hell and high water, so I don't have to. So therefore, everything that we're going through now is just gasoline because we see that, right? Like we're Miss Cleo right now. We see the future. But just know it's rough. And to answer your question, Ryan, it definitely happens. It definitely happens daily, right? Because we don't pick a side. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to is we don't pick the side of, and I'll use these words loosely, so hear me out. We don't pick the side of the community who feels that everything police officers do is racist or, they're abusing their power. We don't pick that side, right? Like we call out police officers when we feel like they do racist things, when we feel like they're abusing their power, but we realize that not everything police officers do is race related or abusive in power or abusive in nature, right? But then we also don't pick the side of police officers, right? To where, police officers can't do any wrong. Racism doesn't exist. So we are in the middle. And it's hard for us because people see that as a threat. People are used to people picking their sides, right? People are used to surrounding themselves with people who are like-minded, and they could say something like, oh, here they go again. And people are automatically going to jump on the bandwagon like, oh, yeah, they are attacking us again. To where when we stand up, they're like, well, hold on, what side are you on? And it's clear what side we're on. We're on what's right and what's wrong. So I'm going to stop for a minute, man. Let me answer your question. I definitely deal with it every single day. I get it from my peers. I get it from the community. I get it from people who I've thought were my friends and family. Yes, I definitely deal with it. But I'm interested, and I know you ready. You lean forward, Ryan.
I had to sit up in my seat, bro.
Yeah. I'm interested to see. I know what the answer is, but I'm interested to see like what you have to say about it, Ryan.
All right, so what's crazy to me, bro, is that you hit something that struck a chord with me, is that we don't pick a side. And sometimes people see that as not picking a side as being weak. Sometimes people see not picking a side as they don't want no conflict. Sometimes people see not picking a side as, they're not sure of themselves. And it's actually quite the contrary. And it actually is a little bit harder not to pick a side. Before we get into actually talking about law enforcement specifically, I want to just talk about society first and how that behavior mirrors the same behavior that we're talking about as it relates to law enforcement. It mirrors itself in society. What I mean is, if we talk about the president for a second, and I've talked about this before, you have two sides. That you have either you're pro-Trump or you're anti-Trump. When Obama was in office, you had either pro-Obama or anti-Obama. When you had Bush in office, pro-Bush or anti-Bush. And there was no in between. And the sad part is that if you say anything in support of the president, then people looked at you and had nothing but hate. I saw an article this morning where somebody tried to turn around and say that the whole COVID-19 outbreak is Trump and Trump supporters' fault. I'm like, how do you point or put the blame for a virus on? Okay, let's just say you left it at Trump, whatever. But how do you put it on the supporters of Trump? And
also, it's affecting like every country. So how is Sweden Trump's fault or whatever,
So this is not me saying that I'm a Trump supporter or not a Trump supporter. This is not any of that. This is the fact of people, if you do not agree with what somebody says, then you now become their enemy and their adversary. And there's a problem with that because we no longer can have educational conversations on a mature level because people are so stuck up in their pride that they won't even be able to see the glass on the other end. So now let me transition this to our profession and as it relates to our profession. One of the things that gets me so upset is, like you said, people have no clue what you and I have embarked upon, the journey that we've embarked on. They have no clue, honestly. We're dealing with a profession that has long roots of abuse, power, brotherhood, secrecy, things like that we have wanted to bring to light in order to make the profession better. But on the same token, we operate in a profession that is not going nowhere, that people need, that society needs. Because the moment you remove law enforcement from society, you're going to get people that take advantage of a system and start making everybody else victims. And if you don't have anybody in between that's going to guard people from being victimized, then where are we going to be as a society? So we're dealing with a profession that on one end, you may not like us, but on another end, you need us. And so the reason the work that you and I do is so dangerous is because we recognize that there is work to do in a profession, that we can move forward in a profession and do things different. And that with that comes people that are going to ridicule you for, why are you doing what you're doing? You shouldn't be doing this. Why are you saying what you're doing? Because you shouldn't be saying that. Why are you calling out that officer? Because you shouldn't be calling out that officer. So we're putting ourselves in a position to be not only ridiculed by the people that are in a profession, but also almost become victims in a sense because, you now become a victim of somebody else's attacks. You become a victim of somebody trying to come after you, trying to maybe get you fired. You don't know what we don't know what we're, making ourselves susceptible to. But on the flip side of that, do you know how many comments I get from people in the community that talk about the only videos I post are pro law enforcement videos? So let me break that down for a second. So I actually had a guy that reached out to me and said, only videos you post are pro law enforcement videos. And so what I did is I DM'd him about 9 videos on my current page where I've actually called out officers for doing the wrong thing. And now shout out to this guy that sent it to me, because his next message after he saw all those videos that I posted was this. And I appreciate him actually for having the decency to be able to not only, watch the videos that I sent to him, but even have this response to me. And his response was, "Bless you. I support this page 100%. Then because there's always two sides, and cops aren't always the bad guy, but also regular people aren't always the bad guy." So he had enough decency to go through, watch every single video that I sent him, and be able to rephrase what he told me and say, okay, I support you 100%. Just because you may not see every single video I post doesn't mean I don't call out bad officers. Just because you may not see me stand up on my throne that you guys want to say I have and call out a bad situation right away doesn't mean I don't call out bad officers. And here's the other side of that. There's another side of that I want to also break down. When I do those videos, not only do I do research, I wait for the situation to come out for a certain reason. It's not because I'm trying to hide and say, oh no, I'm afraid I don't want to address this. No, but everybody deserves the decency to have at least both sides of the story come out. And this is why I say that. If you guys all saw me punch somebody in the face tomorrow, would you go out there on social media and say, oh man, this dude Ryan punched this dude in the face. This is ridiculous. He should have never done it. Or would you guys have enough decency to say, you know what? That dude Ryan's been trying to change the face of modern day policing. That dude Ryan started a business because he really does believe in changing the way we perceive law enforcement. If this dude punched somebody in the face, there might be more to that story. Not to justify my actions, but just to justify, or just to simply say there might be more to the story. Let me wait and see what the facts that come out. So the reason I bring that up is because how is that any different from me waiting for the facts that come out on some other stuff? Now, there have been some that have come out right away and said that this is wrong. This is wrong. And now those were like, if a guy is handcuffed and the officer punches him in the face, I don't necessarily need a background story to know that that's not wrong. But there's other situations that I will wait and come out on just because I do want to give that person's family the decency to say, you know what, let me see what that has to be said about it before I say something right away. And so going back to the dangers and the things that you and I are susceptible to is you also discount the fact that tomorrow, if I go to work, I can be involved in a critical incident like the one I just mentioned. And not only am I going to be affected by it, but my family's going to be affected by it. My close friends are going to be affected by it. Everybody I know is going to be affected by that situation. And yet you don't realize that they're going to come back to my social media accounts. They're going to come back to every single video I've come and called out officers on. They're going to come out to every podcast that I've listed, and they're going to break and nitpick every single thing down and use that as a reason to say, you know what, this is how he thinks, so that's why the force he used wasn't justified. Or this is how he thinks, so if you thought this way, why did you use this level of force? Because I've heard on your podcast before that you've spoken out about this certain situation. So those that speak out against the work that me and AJ do and Billy do, you have no clue the dangers that are involved in it. I still have a career that I need to go to. I still have a family that I need to provide for. I can't just come out and say, you know what, this officer is wrong and not have any foundational information and go out there and just try to be like, hey, look, like this dude's wrong. And not, you know what I mean? Not have anything that I know about the situation. There is a level of, I have an obligation to do research. I have an obligation to go out there and find out as much information as I can before I speak out. I can't just come out off the cuff and just react based off of emotion and say, you know what? No, this person is wrong, or this person, you know, he should be off the force, and not have any other foundational reference to go back to. And so I'm a lead into, or I'm gonna give you the mic back in a second, but there's one other thing that I also wanted to address real quick, because I'm past what we call this passion. I'm passionate about this. The other thing that people fail to realize is this. When you see a controversial police video, maybe a guy beating somebody up. The one I just got recently sent to me was the one where an officer was beating up a kid for, buying cigarettes or something like that. Which, I'm not even going to get into that on this podcast. But irregardless, you have all these people like D.L. Hughley. What's the other dude? Sean King. All these guys.
Tyrese.
Tyrese. All these guys posting videos on something that they don't even really know all the context to. And not to say that they necessarily need to go out and find all this context, but they're saying stuff from an emotional point of view. So what I want to bring up now is that majority of the people that speak out on these situations, what they fail to do is they fail to put themselves in the officer's shoes. And what I mean by that is, let's say somebody spits in the officer's face. Let's say you're not a police officer. You're walking down the street. Somebody spits in your face. Are you going to be able to have the level of restraint to walk away from that person, not say nothing to that person, to, try to be cordial with that person and go back to minding your business? I would guarantee that at least 90 to 99% of people, if they got spat on, if they got punched in the face, if they got called the N-word, if their mom got called a B, whatever it may be, I guarantee you a majority of those people would not be able to have the level of restraint that officers have on a day-to-day basis because we do the job that we do. So when they speak out from an emotional standpoint, not even realizing that if they were put in the exact same situation as that officer, I don't know if their level of restraint would be able to be at that officer's level. And the sad part is, and this is the sad thing about the whole situation, is that they forget that officers are human beings, and they forget that when we get spit on in the field, that police officer uniform that I wear is not going to make me feel like, oh, it's okay, I got spat on. That police officer uniform is not going to make me feel any more comfortable that person just called me an N-word. That police officer uniform is not going to make me feel any better that person just called my kids or said they want to kill my kids. It doesn't. I'm still a human being, and I'm still going to react as a human being in many situations, not justifying behavior. But the sad thing is that people don't want to put themselves in anybody else's situation, but yet all they want to do is just call out the wrong. But yet when they do see something right go out or going on, they want to go back to their little closet and act like they never saw it. So that's what makes me so pissed off about what's going on and what people have to say about the work that we do, because they have no idea how difficult the work it is that we're doing. They have no idea the uncharted waters that we are going out on. I've taken criticism from people both in the profession and outside of the profession.
Shark infested.
So don't come at me and talk about, how come you don't call this out, or how come you're calling that officer out when you have no idea what that officer is going out. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I know how dangerous it is, but yet I also realize that the work still needs to be done. Shoot, give me a fan.
So can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
So I'm curious to see what you say, Billy. You being on the outside, being a civilian, and you pretty much know what's going on with both of us and a lot of what we've had to go through, just because of who we are and what we stand for. I'm curious what your take on this is. Just in general. I know it's like a broad question, but when you hear stories of something that Ryan's going through, or when you hear stories of something that I'm going through, as far as like opposition or hurdles that we have to jump to do the right thing, right? Like we're not trying to jump hurdles to do something wrong. What's your take on that, Billy?
Wow. Well, I feel like what you guys are going through is like a not to minimize it, but like a small example of what the whole country is going through, even politically, where, like you guys say, we're in the middle, right? The BBU, AJ, Onotspopa, like we're all trying to be in the middle, see both sides, think about things rationally, and because of facts, make decisions, whether, something was positive or negative. But everyone is so into choosing sides, and they grip that side no matter what. They do not make, and everything is made decisions off emotion. And emotions are changing. They're fleeting, and that you can't trust them. Like the Bible says, like oh shoot, I shouldn't have. You can't trust your heart. Like, like it's deceitful. You know, like we need to go based on fact. And just people have lost what love is. They've lost what true justice is.
Yeah.
And to us, Jesus Christ is our anchor. It's our focal point. And all of our decisions are made off of what he teaches us and what he teaches life is. So everyone else, there's no focal point. There's no anchor, and emotions are all over the place. So
Yeah.
Decision making is all over the place, and no one is really thinking things through.
I'll tell you why I asked you that, Billy. So I was having a conversation with one of my partners at work. So I've had 3 partners throughout my career, and all 3 partners have been male whites. And I was having a conversation with one of them a couple of days ago, and he brought this up, and it really got my wheels turning. He said, and all of us are friends. Like, we all talk, we all hang out, outside of work, and, we know each other very well. But he brought up this, and he said, AJ, I've never experienced things being handled as aggressively as they are handled until I became your partner. And I'm willing to bet that the rest of your partners are people that you have worked with in the past would say the same thing. And he followed that up with a question. He goes, well, why do you think that is? And it really got my wheels turning, and I had to make some calls, and I'm calling my other partners, and I'm asking them, like, well, how is it working with me? And one even joked, like, well, you just got to know the moment that we agreed to work with you that's a lot, like we're almost putting a target on our back, and people are going to write us off, and people are going to try to get us in trouble. And the frustrating part about that is that is something that an associate of a criminal would say, right? Like, if Ryan was a bank robber and I asked you, Billy, like, man, how is it being friends with Ryan? I would expect that to be your response. Like, man, it's hard. He's a bank robber. He's a criminal. Like, people automatically are going to put a target on my back and try to, say that I'm the bad guy, and they're going to try to arrest me, or, whatever. Like, I would expect you to have that mentality. But it's interesting that we're the opposite, right? Like, we're actually trying to promote positive change, and we're not out here doing anything crazy. I personally know some stories that are wild. Like, police officers have done some wild stuff, and they still have their jobs. But here we are, it's like, man, like, we go through hell and high water. We're not doing anything crazy, and it's the opposite. Like, we're trying to do what's right, and we're being attacked so much so that our associates not only feel it, but experience. So the reason I asked you that was that, just to get your input on, why you think it is. And I have 2 theories, and this is going to rub some people the wrong way, but I'm gonna just put it out there because we're transparent on this podcast. Is the first theory is we're that, we decided to go against the grain. We decided to not pick a side, which pisses a lot of people off, and for some reason, whether it's politics or police officers or policing, you have to pick a side. And I don't really think of anything else off top like that, right? Like, if you work at McDonald's and, I tell a McDonald's employee, like, man, I don't like that McDonald's employee. I think that McDonald's employee is racist. The one that you're talking to is going to be like, well, that's between y'all, right? They're not automatically going to be like, well, hold on, the McDonald's corporation was found, you know what I mean? Like, but when it comes to politics and policing, it's very much that way. So my first theory is, I think that, we face a lot of opposition because of that. But this is my controversial theory, is we're minorities. And when I say we, I mean you and I, Ryan. And it does upset a lot of people when minorities speak out or succeed, really, right? Like, when they have success, especially in the same field as someone who's not a minority. And I'm not saying this is like everyone, right? But I am saying that there are people in power, whether it's higher ups on divisions, whether it's politicians, what have you, who are not minorities. And when you step in their lane as a minority and you start to shine, that they feel some type of way about that. And I'm speaking from experience. So I'm not just kind of pulling this out of nowhere. So I think we have a double whammy. I do. I think the minorities appreciate what we're doing, but they're upset because we're not picking per se their side, right? Like we're not going, these police officers are out of line and what have you. But then I think the fact that we're minorities and we're thriving, standing out, speaking against, racist police officers is pissing a lot of people off on the inside. So it's frustrating, and at times it feels like we're punching water. You can't make a dent, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say there's another part of that too, which I was having a conversation with a partner of mine last night, and I was telling him, I was like, one of the other frustrating things about the work that we've been doing is like when I succeed. So I, early on in my career, I started having success from a police standpoint. I was getting awards. I got Officer of the Year, got B Cop of the Quarter, Excellence Awards, all these different awards, right?
Yep.
And the sad thing is that people pinned me getting my awards based on the work that I was doing through BBU. Like overshadowing the work that I actually do as a police officer.
Yeah.
And the sad part about it is that, I love BBU. I love the work that we've been doing. I love the podcast, all the things that we've been able to do. But it really has no bearing on the work that I actually do as a police officer. Like the funny thing is like when I go to work, I really rarely ever speak about the work of BBU to anybody unless they ask. Like it's kind
which is sad.
It's
is sad within itself, right? Because you are a successful businessman. Your company is geared towards improving the profession, and it's to the point where you don't even want to bring up what you're doing and your accomplishments as a businessman because you fear the repercussions that you may have to face.
And what's funny about that is why is there repercussions on you going out there and trying to make positive changes in law enforcement? You'd think, I mean, some people do want to help, but you'd think everyone at your department would be like, hey man, how can I help you? Because I'm also a police officer and I want to see positive changes. You'd like to think that's what would happen.
Why do you think that? Billy, why do you think that is happening? This is a serious question. I'm sorry.
That's a good question.
Why do I think people aren't doing that?
No. Why do you think that they're, I faced it as well. Why do you think that we have a fear of repercussion, doing the right thing in our field, from our field?
Well, I think if you look at anyone who's tried to create major change, they're always going to meet opposition, whether it's just people don't like change. So why you guys are fearing repercussions? I mean, people within law enforcement, you guys talk about a lot. They might just not want to call out cops. Like we need to back each other up.
And so on that, it's like it's so frustrating, like that, like when literally if you work with me, unless somebody brings up BBU, which it's funny because the flip side of that is like all the new recruits coming out. Shout out to if you listen to our podcast.
Yes, bro.
Shout out to all the people like if you follow us and we do motivate you. Shout out to you because I have heard overwhelmingly that majority of the new people that we have coming in, a lot of them are coming to our department because they follow the work that we do.
Yep.
But yet internally sometimes, like you would never even know that because people either don't want to hear about it, they're hating on it, or the fact of is they think that that's all I do. Like brush over the fact that they don't even like sometimes people don't even realize like that I actually do some good, decent work as a police officer, as a street cop. Like, if you have a trainee that's ridden with me or you have some of my partners, like one of my partners said something last night that was actually kind of profound, is like, because he's had heard some people in the past talking about me. And he's like, bro, have you ever worked with him? And they're like, no. And they're like, bro, if you've never even worked with him, like, you have no clue. Like, dude is a good dude. He's actually a really decent police officer. And what you're saying right now has no basis of reality of what the type of cat he is. And so that's the funny thing is people will make their justifications based on knowledge that they don't even know. And so that's why, again, I get so mad and angry when people hit us up about, oh, you only do pro police videos, or, oh, you don't call out people. It's like, you have no clue the other things that I'm going through. None. I still do those pro videos. And if you really want to get detailed with it, like, if you looked at my page, the amount of videos that I have that are, calling out a bad police officer is very proportionate to with reality, which is the amount of justified police actions that go on compared to the amount of interactions that we have with people on a regular is only like 1% of really bad is really bad. Majority of the police contacts that we have are justified and pretty good. So if you look at my page, I have majority of stuff that's pretty good, but I have the 1% of stuff that is bad. It's very proportionate. And it's funny is I didn't even actually do that on purpose. I didn't set it up like that on purpose, but it actually, if you think about it, it works itself out because a majority of the stuff that we watch is actually justified. It may not always look that way, but a majority of it is justified if you know and understand case law and all the other stuff. And so it just frustrates me that, the people that want to sit here and say, oh, you only post positive police videos, or why don't you call this out, or why don't you stop hiding about this one? It's like, man, you have no clue. One, I can call it out, but give it some time. Two is I have no problems calling it out. And three is you don't understand that I also have a job that I still have to show up to and want to work in semi good conditions. Like, do you think I want to show up every single day and feel like I have a target on my back? Like, I have a wife and kids at home. So do I really want to show up to work every single day and feel like I have a target on my back because all I do is just call out crooked cops? Like, that doesn't even make any sense to me. Like, do you go to your job and go watch the store owner of McDonald's and everything that he does? As soon as he does something wrong, you get on the social media that day and be like, hey, the store owner tonight, what y'all don't realize is that he took an extra $5 out of that cash register tonight that shouldn't have belonged to him. Like, do you follow his every move and start calling him out? No, because you want to work in a semi-decent work environment, realizing that, look, like, I can't call out everything. So if you read the book of Art of War, you'll understand something, that it is not that, like, it's very important to win the war and not just the battle. And so sometimes in doing so, you may lose a battle, but the ultimate goal is you're going to win that war. And so I feel like a lot of times our followers want us to win every single battle, when that's not realistic. That's not even, if you read the book, The Art of War, it talks about you may not win the battle, but you want to win the war. And so in the fight that we're up against, I'm not going to win every battle. I'm not trying to win every battle, but I am trying to win this war. And by winning the war, I have to be very strategic in what I say, how I say it, when I say it, not only for fear of repercussions at work, but for fear that if I go out tomorrow and commit and do a use of force on somebody and it doesn't look that good, they're also going to use all the content that I've produced to this point. They're going to use it against me. And if they use that against me, you don't understand, but I also have a wife and 3 kids at home that are going to be victimized and suffer if I make a wrong decision. So yes, you got to realize that I am going to be very strategic in what I do. I'm not going to try to win every battle, but you better believe I'm not going to get out of this war because I do want to win the war at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So what are we looking like on time, Billy?
We're at 39:20.
You said 39:20?
Yep.
Oh, man, I thought we was way further than that.
So our passion got us feeling like it's way further than that.
Man, bro, listen, man. Yeah, absolutely. Something you said made me think of this. Have you been watching the Jordan documentary?
Man, I have not, man, but I've heard it's so legit though. But I have been reading the book Relentless, which is Tim Grover. Tim Grover is his trainer, is Michael Jordan's trainer, who is Kobe's trainer and Dwayne Wade's trainer.
So there's two parts of the documentary, man. It won't really ruin anything for you. That just, man, like when these parts of the documentary came up, I literally had to pause it and just go, yeah, that's what I'm on. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And the first part was when Jordan broke his foot and, he couldn't play any games. And then when he was almost 100%, they would allow him to play like 15 minutes per game, right? And at 15 minutes, even if they had like a second left in the game and he could win the game by like making the game winning shot, they would take him out because he had beef with the owner of the Bulls at the time. So the doctor comes in and is talking to MJ, and the doctor's like, well, look, he goes, you have a 10% chance of re-breaking your foot if you go back out here and you start playing like 100%, giving it your all, playing for the whole game. And Jordan goes, well, what's that mean? Like, what's that 10% going to look like if I re-break this? And he goes, you'll never play basketball again. So Jordan was like, that's a no-brainer, because what you're telling me is there's a 90% chance I can make history. Let's go, right? So I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm listening. I'm with you, Jordan. Like, that's my mentality, right? So then Jordan's coach, the Bulls coach, comes in to the locker room, sits Jordan down, and he goes, I don't think you're really taking into consideration the risk versus reward factor here. And Jordan's kind of sitting there like, yeah, I'm hearing you. Let's get this over with. And he goes, if you had a really bad headache and I gave you a bottle of pills and 9 of the pills would cure the headache instantly, but 1 of them would kill you, would you take a pill? And Jordan didn't skip a beat. And he goes, well, it depends on how bad he said it depends on how bad the MF and headache is. And I was just like, boom, that's it. That's it. That is exactly it. Like, it depends on how bad the headache is equivalent to, well, it depends on how big of a change we can make. Right? So, AJ, if you could get in a time machine, go back, never pursue this career of change, never put stuff on social media, never become this figure, would you do it? No, I wouldn't change anything about this, because it depends on how bad the headache is, aka it depends on how much change I can make. And I've already seen the amount of change firsthand. I had a new officer ride with me the other day, and I couldn't go anywhere. It was almost like I set it up, right? I couldn't go anywhere without kids. Officer Johnson, kids who could barely speak. Hey, Officer Johnson, right? Like walking up to my cruiser, convicted criminals. We arrested a person for a serious felony charge, and he was in the back seat crying, saying, AJ, I just don't want you to look at me like I'm a bad guy. You're the only one who has showed me love my entire life. Like, I wouldn't change it. But in the same breath, like, you have to understand, we've been doing this podcast for what? Coming up on 2 years? And I could count on one hand how many times we've had to have a podcast like this where we just put it all out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just bottled up, and you're like, you know what? We got to get it out. So please don't take this as a gripe fest or, us just complaining about something that we quote unquote signed up for. I want you to take this 2 ways. I want you to take this the first way as this is a heads up for any police officer, for any community member, for anyone considering going into the field, that this is what we're dealing with. We're not asking for compassion. We're not asking for sympathy. We're not even asking for help, really. We're just letting you know that this is what we deal with. So maybe when you see us venting or when you see us involved in something, you could take a step back and go, man, they're going through it. They are going through it, right? And then the second reason I share this is to let you know we ain't stopping.
Nope.
We are not stopping. That's not in our blood, and it's never been in our blood. I haven't known Ryan his entire life, but I'm telling you right now, I know enough about his personality to know it ain't never been in his blood either. So if anything, this is just motivation. This is just motivation, and we're just letting you know, the listeners, the viewers, someone you might tell, hey, watch out. Watch out, because it's about to get. If you thought we were changing things now, if you thought we were changing the game, changing the face of law enforcement now, watch out. I'm telling you right now, watch out. Because when you firmly believe in something, there's nothing in the world that's going to stop you from getting it done. Let me rephrase that. There's one thing that's going to stop you from getting it done, and that's the big man himself telling you, "Hey,
Yep.
let's try something else."
Yep.
But other than that, this is God sent. This is God sent. You think we woke up one day and was like, "Man, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna make my life hard. I'm gonna get ridiculed every day, and I'm gonna get judged every day, but I'm gonna make this change." Like, we ain't wake up like that. This is God sent. Like, God sent this message down into our hearts and said, "Hey, listen. You already know you're going to go through it because you're a believer, because you believe in me and you let people know that you believe in me. But you really going to go through it with this. And I'm sending this to you because you can handle it. I'm sending this to you because I know you can handle it."
Yep.
So when you hear this podcast or when you hear a snippet on this podcast, whether it's this episode, one in the future or one in the past that we've already recorded, or you see a video of us doing whatever, I want you to remember this. I want you to take a step back and go, "Man, look, I heard what they're going through. Now I don't want no sympathy. I don't want no none of that. I just want you to know, like, man, that they're doing it. They're doing it." And I always go back to E.T. said it. He's like, thank God the slaves ain't feel like that, right? Like, thank God the slaves ain't have a mentality of, "Man, this is hard, I'm gonna quit." Yep. Thank God Harriet Tubman wasn't like, "Man, look, I made it out."
Yeah.
I don't know how y'all gonna get out, right?
Exactly.
Like, she went back and brought people with her. So to our avid listeners, thank you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much, because when we get messages saying, "You're the reason I'm a police officer," I'm getting emotional, man. You're the reason I'm a police officer. You're the reason I look at police officers different. I seen this video the other day, and the reason I'm not so upset is because now I know that the video could have been taken out of context. I now shake police officers' hands when I see them. You changed my perspective on how I do my job, and I've been in my job longer than maybe you've been alive, right? Like, when we get those messages, it helps us in times like this. It truly does. It truly, 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 truly does. And it makes this weight more bearable because we know, right? Like, it's easy for us to see the outcome of our journey and our work because it's God sent, right? Like we see it clear as day, which is why we do what we do. But when we're along this journey and we slip and we fall and we scrape our knee, or we fall in a pit, or we got to go through hell and high water, it's nice to hear every now and then, "Hey, you're helping me out. You help me out. You got it. You keep going. Keep going." We're not going to stop either way. Even if we never hear that, we're not going to stop. But it does help. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And to turn this around, y'all better watch out. Y'all better watch out, because listen, the change is coming.
Yep. And I want to also tell you guys thank you as well, because AJ hit the nail right on the head. It's like, hey, it helps us bear the burdens that we do go through. And the other good thing about it is, like, what gives me light is when I'm going back to how I found out that there's so many people that come through the doors and say they listen to what we do. That tells me that the future of law enforcement is already being geared to have a mentality that sees both sides of things. And that also tells me that if we continue to bring those people to the doorsteps of this profession, that's what winning the war will look like. When you have people that can actually see the both sides of what it is that we do a profession, and recognize that we have work to do, but also recognize that, I'm still a human being. That's when we're going to start to see the war being won. And so, one of the things that, you have brought up is, and I love when people say this, is like, well, this is what you signed up for. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. But what would happen if nobody signed up? And so let me say that again. Like, the comment that I get frequently when I show a video of an officer getting killed or an officer getting beat up or whatever it may be, and I'm saying this is what that officer is going through, and when people tell me, "Oh, well, this is what you signed up for," well, what would happen if nobody signed up? And so, go ahead.
A real quick question to those who say that is, Martin Luther King Jr. knew what he signed up for, right? Now, when he was assassinated, when he was taking his last breath, would you being the person who has that mentality of this is what you signed up for, would you whisper that in his ear? Well, this is what you signed up for.
Yeah.
No.
No, exactly.
No, you wouldn't.
Exactly. So how is it? And it's funny you brought that up because I was going to say the same exact thing. Martin Luther King, all these people that went before us, you would not go up to Martin Luther King and be like, hey, well, this is what you signed up for, dog. Because I guarantee, I'm almost positive that Martin Luther King went back to his wife and had many discussions about how frustrated he is, how sad he is, how scared he is, whatever it may be, because he was one of those guys that was in the middle. He recognized that, you know what, we have work to do as a people, but he also recognized that my people will no longer be oppressed anymore. And that came with a lot of inherent dangers. But you wouldn't walk up to Dr. Martin Luther King and be like, well, this is what you signed up for. Like, people that say that are cowards, if you ask me. And the reason it's cowardice is because you don't want to go out there and sit here and at least try to put yourself in that person's shoes and understand what that person is going for. Yes, this is what I signed up for, but I did not sign up for people trying to attack my wife. I did not sign up for people trying to attack my kids. I did not sign up for people trying to call me out of name. I get it. It comes with the territory, but it doesn't justify it. That's like, me trying to justify somebody, an officer punching somebody in the face that has handcuffs on. Like, no, I'm not going to justify it because it's just not right. So that's just like, I hate when people make that comment. But going back to the positivity in this thing is like, this is one of those passion episodes. We're going to get passionate about this topic, but we wouldn't be being real with you guys. We wouldn't be being transparent with you guys if we didn't share our hearts with you guys. And the other part to that is whoever is listening to this right now is probably going through something that's very similar in nature, but on the different side of the spectrum, whatever it may be. And so you have to be encouraged just as much as me and AJ are. I have AJ here, I have Billy here to vent to, but I'm also speaking to you as well, is pick your head up because we in this together. We in this fight together. We will win the war. We will. So we have to find ways to stay encouraged. We got to stay in our Bible. We got to stay in prayer because these are all things that the enemy will send your way. So that way to try to stop you because he knows what the outcome could be. You know what I mean? But also God is trying to develop some type of resilience in our lives to be better followers for him. And so I want to encourage you, whoever that is out there right now, that if you are going through some type of adversity, embrace it. I always tell people embrace the struggle.
That's right.
So I don't want you guys to think like me sitting here is like, me and AJ sitting here going in about this is us giving up. No.
Nah.
Quite the contrary.
Never.
And it's funny because before we even got on this podcast today, me and AJ, we just turned on as soon as his video came up, we just shook our heads because we both had one of those days yesterday. But the best part about it is that when I know I'm having one of those days, I know I'm in it with my brothers. I know I'm not the only one that's in it. You know what I mean? And so I embrace that struggle. I want you, whoever's going through a crisis right now, adversity, embrace it. Embrace the struggle. And if you are one of those people that has maybe said something that I addressed today as being ignorant or being cowardice, I want you to know, like this, there's no hard feelings. There's no disrespect, but the words that come out of your mouth, because you may not have thought about what you said, because you may be acting from an emotional standpoint, it doesn't come across to me as being loving. It doesn't come across to me as being, hey, this is a wise person that's saying something that I should take light to or take heart to change what I need to do. What you're saying is taken as disrespect, and it's not right. And so we have to be willing to call each other out. If Billy or AJ said something to me today that I was doing something wrong, what I'm going to do first is not only am I going to address them, I'm going to ask others like, hey man, am I doing, like, tell me if I'm screwed up. Like, tell me. Because if I'm screwed up, I don't want to go back to the person that's called me out on being screwed up and just try to go into defense mode. It's not right. So I would go to Billy. I would go to AJ. hey, bro, this is some of the accusations that were made against me. I don't want you to tell me what I want to hear. I want you to tell me what I don't need to hear or I don't want to hear.
And it's important to surround yourself with people who you already know are not going to like coddle you and like be upfront with you. That's a key as well.
Yeah, it's huge, because if you don't, it develops a mentality that we've been suffering from as a society right now. Is everybody wants to go with the motion of the ocean, and nobody wants to go against the current. And so actually, I don't want to say nobody. No, we do have people who want to go against the current, which is us. But there's not as many people going against the current. You have a lot of people going with the motion of the ocean. And so, like I said, I signed up for it. Yes, you're right. I signed up for it 100%. And I, like AJ said, I would not go back and change things. I would not at all. Not at all. Just the little things that I've been able to accomplish in the short period of 3 years has been remarkable. The people that I've talked to on my day job. I had a girl the other day. I went on a CPS investigation, a Child Protective Services investigation. And at the end of the investigation, I'm sitting down with this little girl, and I'm talking to her. She's 9 years old. And she's like, I'm like, so, hey, what do? You TikTok and stuff like that? She's like, yeah, I TikTok. And I'm like, oh, you don't know how to do the whoa, just like little stuff, funny stuff. And at the end of our conversation, she was like, yeah, I follow you. I've never met this little girl in my life.
Nope.
She's like, I follow you on TikTok. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. That's not the first time that's happened to me. So everybody, all the naysayers about the social media stuff, the dancing stuff, whatever it may be, you don't understand how far impact goes. You honestly don't. You honestly don't. I have people reach out to me all the time from all over the world talking about how in one way or shape or form I impacted them. That little girl that recreated that dance video, I've never met that little girl in my life. And that gave her some hope. So for those that want to sit here and say, oh, you only call out good police videos, you don't critique bad ones, this and that, you are only looking at a small percentage of what it is I actually stand for. You honestly are. Because if you looked at the whole picture of what I do, it's not just calling out bad officers. I call out bad officers. I call out good officers. I go out there, I speak to schools. I go out there and make connections with people in the community. I go out there and try to be a living soldier for Christ. These are the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. So when you call me out for one area of what you may not agree with, make sure you look at the totality of things. Now, don't get me wrong. If I'm doing something that is wrong, if I put out wrong information and you call me out on that, totally good with that. You know what? Yeah, I need you to call me out so that way I can get better, accurate information. But don't call me out on information that's just made from an emotional mindset. Because if you call me out on something that's coming from an emotional mindset, you need to go recheck yourself and figure out, you know what, I need to be better, and I need to come with better facts before I try to check him because I'm all up in my feelings. So
and never let your emotions overpower your intelligence. Never. So, what we looking like, Billy, time wise?
58.
So this is kind of what I want to do. This is kind of how I want to end this, is with final thoughts, just with it all. But Billy, I want you to get on this too.
Okay.
So we'll have you go first, Billy. We'll let my boy Ryan take it home, and I'll jump in after Billy. So, what are your final thoughts, Billy? Just with the podcast, everything that we've touched on, and just everything.
Yeah, final thoughts. I mean, we're talking about people who are trying to make change, and it can get frustrating, right? So, to everyone listening to the podcast who you feel like in your own world or your profession or whatever, you're trying to make change, and that it feels like you're yelling into the void or yelling at the sky. Like, that's not true. You're impacting the people around you, whether you know it or not. Even if it's just you're showing your spouse what it means to be a good husband or wife, you're showing your kids what it means to stand for what you believe in. And I mean, when things get hard, what are you gonna do? Just stop? I mean, there's nothing to do but keep trying.
That's good.
what you got, AJ?
Yeah. So I need you to hear me clearly when I say this. I don't know who you is. I don't even know what kind of is that who you are. But I need you to hear me when I say this. I will never stop doing what I'm doing because I believe in why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that means no matter how high the hurdle is, no matter how hard things get, no matter how much water I have to swim through, shark-infested waters, how much shade is thrown my way, opposition internally and externally. I will never stop doing what I'm doing because I know why I'm doing it. And that why is the change that's needed, right? Like when something is God sent, when God puts something in your heart, there ain't no stopping it. There ain't no stopping it. And I don't know about you, once again, whoever you are, but I know me personally, I serve a undefeated God. So when you take that into consideration, let's go. Let's go. It's going to get hard. It's going to get rough, but I see the vision clear as day. Clear as day. So hear me when I say this again. We may have vented this podcast during this podcast, and it may come off as, oh, these guys are just griping, or oh, these guys are just complaining. It's not that at all. We want you to understand what we go through, because there are people out there who look up to us, really, and who we inspire, who may not know what they may encounter doing what we're doing. So consider this the heads up. But please don't take this as oh, well, you signed up for it, stop griping. It's not that at all. It's not that at all. If anything, this is fuel to the fire. This is fuel to the fire. I'll never stop doing what I'm doing because I believe in why. I believe in the smiles. I believe in the people who could call me because their kids acting up. I could come down to that area on or off duty, and their kid could talk to me in an area where police officers are hated. That kid could get into the back seat of my cruiser in front of drug dealers, and the drug dealers won't judge him because the drug dealers know who I am, because I put food in their kid's refrigerator, right, when they couldn't, and because I paid their mom's rent. I will never stop doing what I'm doing. So please don't even think that that's an option.
So I guess what I got to say is, it's not just a slogan, and I'm not going to stop. And what I mean by that is, when I say we're going to change the face of modern day policing, that's not just a slogan. When I say that we're bridging the gap between law enforcement and community, that's not just a slogan. And I will not stop. I will not stop despite the adversity. I will not stop despite what people may say. I will not stop despite what people may think of me. I will not stop. It's not a slogan. It's actual action. And the reason I say that is because of this. I knew what I was going to be up against. I just may have not have known how I was going to go up against it.
Mm-hmm.
And like AJ said, is yes, this is what I signed up for, but just because I signed up for it doesn't make it any less easier to go through it, or any more easier to go through it. So the thing I need you guys to understand right now, and I know AJ and Billy addressed all of our followers, and we appreciate you guys, and I think you guys got enough encouragement, but I'm going to address those that are the naysayers. If you're a naysayer, before you want to speak out and say something, put yourself in the shoes of the person you want to speak out against. If you're a naysayer, put your family in the situation of that person you want to speak out against. If you're a naysayer, put yourself in the situation of that person that's going through it, and the mental capacity that they need to, stomach if they took the life of another person for the rest of their life. We're so quick to criticize. We're so quick to be judgmental, but yet we are not putting ourselves in the shoes of another person. There is a reason why I have a faith in Jesus Christ, and that's because everything that I do, all the knowledge I have, all the wisdom that I try to get, it comes from the Bible. And there's a specific thing that the Lord said when it comes to everything I'm saying right now, and that is, before you try to remove the speck from your brother's eye, turn around and look in the mirror and try to remove the plank from your own eye. And right now what we have is, we have a lot of people trying to remove the speck from other people's eyes right now. Everybody's trying to remove all these specks from everybody else's eyes, but don't even realize that they got 4 planks in their own eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sitting here saying I'm an angel. I'm not sitting here saying AJ's an angel. I'm not sitting here saying Billy's an angel, because I'm not. Lord knows I'm not. And Lord knows there's sometimes where I need to be checked. I need to be humbled, whatever it may be. But God knows that. And God knows how to do it. But how can God remove the planks from my own eyes if I'm not willing to allow him to remove the planks from my own eyes? And there's so many people right now that don't want the planks removed. They can look in the mirror right now and see planks in their eyes and they wouldn't even try to pull it out because they're more comfortable with those planks being there if they have the opportunity to tell somebody that they need to remove the speck from their eye. And so what I want to do is, we haven't done this in a while. I'm gonna close on a quick prayer.
Yes, sir.
Because I truly believe that praying unlocks the peace that we need to withstand the adversity we're going through. I was having a conversation, and I'm gonna be transparent with you guys, and my family is going through a tough time right now. My dad, my mom and my sister took my dad to the hospital the other day because they had he has a bed wound that is almost going to the bone. Like it's bad. It's a bed sore. And so they took him in because it's getting bad. And shout out to my mom. She's listening to this. That woman is a trooper. That woman is a straight up trooper. And you know what? A lot of the reason why I have the ability to do what I'm doing, endure what I'm doing, is because of that woman right there, coupled with my dad. Those two people right there have built this endurance that I have. And, when they took my dad to the hospital, before my dad got sick over 10 years ago, my dad was probably about 250 pounds, 275 pounds. He was a bigger dude. My mom sent me a screenshot of his weight at the doctor's. My man weighs 115 pounds right now. 115 pounds. And the crazy thing is that, we pray for miracles and we wonder why, like, God, can you give me a miracle? God, give me a miracle. God, give me a miracle. And sometimes God doesn't answer the question or doesn't answer the prayer. We talked about that on the last podcast. Yes, no, and not right now. And sometimes God may say, no, I'm not going to give you a miracle. And the reason he's saying no to that miracle is because he wants you to change your prayer from God, give me a miracle, to God, give me the peace that surpasses all of my understanding. Because the faith that you need to have that peace probably is a little bit more faith than you need actually for the miracle. And what I mean by that is, simply put like this, is that if God gives you the faith to have peace in him, then you don't necessarily need a miracle to change the faith that you have in him. Because if he gives you that peace, you don't need a miracle to know that God exists and that God will get you through every single adversity that you have. Because if he does a miracle for you, that miracle may not be enough to give you the peace to put all your faith and trust into him. And so when I speak to people, my situation specifically with my mom and my dad, I prayed for a miracle a long time ago that God would heal my dad, but he never healed him. But I do think that God still, accomplished a miracle. And that miracle was in 2016. We thought we were going to have to I had a conversation with my sisters and my mom about putting my dad on hospice care. That was probably one of the toughest conversations I've ever had in my life, which was deciding whether or not we wanted to put my dad on hospice. And it was split. Me and my sister wanted one thing, and my sister and my mom wanted another thing. And the doctor literally came and told us, like, hey, there's nothing else we can do at this point. Your dad has developed bacteria or whatever it's called that will just defend any medicine we give him is just going to fight it off. He's not going to work. That was in 2016. We're in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So if I would say that God is still not in the miracle business, he is, because that's a miracle, if you ask me, that my dad has made it to 2020. Maybe that miracle wasn't the way I perceived it to be. Mm-hmm. Maybe it wasn't how I thought he was going to be, but that's a miracle in and of itself. Mm-hmm. But one thing I realized at that point in time in 2016 is I start also praying for peace, and God has given me a peace over all this circumstance. And so the reason I bring up all this, the reason I'm sharing my heart with you, is because you got to understand that, yes, God is in the miracle business, but sometimes the peace of God that surpasses our understanding is probably more valuable than a miracle. Because that peace of God will be with you forever. That miracle will be forgotten, unfortunately. We're human beings. Think about it. You go get that new TV, and that new TV is the best new TV until you go home, and then you see an 80-inch TV on TV, and you're like, man, I need that.
Mm-hmm.
Miracles will be forgotten sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. But peace, the peace of God, will never be forgotten because it will guard your heart. And you can look up Philippians 4:6, and it'll tell you the peace of God will guard your heart. So I tell you guys that to encourage you. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. We appreciate you. This podcast, I've said it from day one. The moment we did this podcast, I look at it as a therapy session for me. And so everybody that listens to this podcast, know you are family. I know you. I love you. Even if you're one of those people that has said something negative, I love you. And if you've made it all the way to the end of this podcast without cutting it off because you got offended, I love you. I really do. There's no offense taken. I just want to be able to grow together and not against each other. So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you, and I just ask that you would just watch over everybody that listens to this podcast today. You know what everybody's going through. You know more than I know. Me, Billy, AJ, Lord knows everything that we're going through, but we also recognize that there's people listening right now that are going through situations that are way worse than ours. Way, way worse than ours. And so I would ask right now, Lord, whoever's listening, that the prayer might change from asking for a miracle to asking for peace. Not to say that it's wrong to ask for a miracle, but we know, Lord, that when you give us that peace that you promise in the Bible that's going to surpass all of our understanding, I know how valuable that peace is because I have that peace. I have that peace, and I know what it's like to have that peace. I know what it's like to look at somebody that's taking their last breath and knowing that the moment they pass and take their last breath, they will be absent from the body and present with you if they are a believer in you. So I ask that you would give me that same peace, or you give the people that same peace that I have. Watch over us all, Lord. Guide us, comfort us in our week. Comfort Billy as he's going to be leaving town soon. Just watch over us all, but allow us to stay encouraged to do the work that we do, Lord, because we know that it's not done in vain, and we know it's only done to glorify you. So whoever's out there that needs a special uplift right now, if you are on the borderline of, I don't know if I should believe in God, I don't know if I can believe in God, or God is turned his back on me. If you're one of those people that feels that God has turned his back on you and he doesn't listen to you and you can't trust him, or if you're one of those people that feel like every Christian is a hypocrite, just know that God loves you. Just know that I love you, because God's love surpasses everything. And you are loved. People do care about you. Yes, it's important to read the Bible, but it's equally and more important for me to show you love. God's word says, love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and all your body. But also love your neighbors as you'll love yourself. So I love you, even though I never met you, and that love that I have for you only comes from God. And if you want that peace in your life, just accept Jesus Christ into your heart, because he will give you the peace that surpasses all understanding. I love you guys, and that's all I got. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace.